Let's get started.
So we decide that we want to kill
Oh,
ourselves.
for all of you for coming and being here, Robert.
Oh, yeah.
Paul, he's the Paul Warburg Professor? Are you still that? That's very impressive.
Come on, he was on the Federal Reserve Board.
Okay, forgot about that. PhD at Harvard, BS from Caltech, and the paper is Markups and Entry in a Circular Hoteling Model by Complex. Anyway, we're anxious to hear what you have to say, and there'll be lots of commentary, I'm sure, from all over the place, back and forth. So welcome, Robert.
Okay, thanks. This work is based on the classic hoteling model from 1929, which I think is one of the all-time most cited papers, actually. Anyway, so hoteling constructed this locational model, which he used to think about pricing behavior in particular, as well as business locations. And this model was based on a finite straight line, but I'm going to use a circular version of this model, which is usually attributed to Salop, although there's actually an earlier version of it that exists. But the circular model is much more tractable because it's completely symmetric, doesn't have endpoints that you have to worry about, and I think it brings out the main points. And I'm going to think about this as a conceptual framework, especially to analyze price markups, which I think the model is very well suited for. And of course, there's been a lot of interest in markups. But this is basically a conceptual paper of where markups come from. And the results are going to relate particularly to the well-known Lerner formula for markups based on the elasticity of demand. And in a sense, the hoteling approach, you can think about it as either supplementing or substituting for the Lerner kind of formula, which relates particularly to the elasticity of demand. So I'm going to think about this kind of circle framework, which has a circumference, which represents the overall size of the economy, but that's not particularly important. The stores are going to be arranged around the circle. You can think about the buyers as being uniformly distributed around the circumference, and that's going to be taken as given. And there's going to be a finite number of stores which service these consumers. So I'm going to focus on some store called Store 1, which is at the bottom, and there'll be capital N stores in total. I'm going to assume at the beginning that they're evenly spaced around the circle, but that's going to be actually an equilibrium outcome in this model, that they'll be located like that. So there'll be some spacing between the stores, which I call 2h. I call it 2 little h because half of that is going to end up being the distance or market that the store is going to service on either side of its location. So you can think about Store 1 as competing directly with Store 2 to the right and Store capital N to the left. And that's going to generalize to the whole market, but I'll focus on this individual Store 1. Anyway, okay, there's going to be, so there's some cost of production here. C, hoteling had that being 0. So there's some positive marginal cost of production, which is going to be the same for all of the stores. And there's going to be, in addition to that, some costs that people pay to transport goods from the store where they buy the stuff to where they're living, which is, and they're uniformly distributed around the circle. So little z is going to represent the distance of a customer from the store. And there's going to be some transport cost parameter analogous to hoteling, little t, which is going to tell you how much you have to pay to do this transporting. So little t times the distance z is going to be the cost of transport. And it's of some importance, actually, that this is a cost per unit transported. So the total transportation cost is going to be proportional to the quantity. And the quantity is going to be determined in the model I have here. It's not going to be like everybody buys one unit, which is sometimes the way this model is applied. So TZ is going to effectively add to the cost per unit of buying stuff. So stores are going to price at some amount, and store J is going to have some price that it sets piece of J. It'll be piece of one for store one. And effectively, the customers, they're all going to pay the same price, but they're going to have a different transport cost depending on where they're located. So each customer is going to pay the explicit price plus the TZ associated with the transport cost.
That's an assumption or a conclusion that they will pay the same price.
That'll be a conclusion of the model. But what I meant by paying the same price here is a given store, say store one, is not going to discriminate in terms of where the customers are coming from.
Yeah, but that's an assumption or a conclusion.
So it's an assumption that stores, they don't even know where the customers are coming from. They're just, you're posting a price, and anybody who shows up is paying that explicit price. But it'll be an equilibrium outcome that the price charge is going to be the same for all the stores. So I'm not imposing that at the beginning. I didn't know which of those two things
I meant you're imposing the fact that they can't tell where the customer's coming from.
Right. Yes,
They can't
I agree.
set up a contract with the customer signals or something like that.
Yeah, they might want to have some kind of discrimination. That's not what's in this way I'm doing it. Now, I think it's important in applications, as Hotelling stresses in his original paper, that this transportation cost thing is basically a metaphor. And it's supposed to represent things aside from the price that people care about when they're buying goods from stores. And there might be lots of distinguishing characteristics of goods or stores that people care about. So you can have potentially people paying different prices compensated by this other characteristic. So here it's all about transportation costs. And then you can work out explicitly the whole equilibrium within that model.
Yeah, so this is literally a model of horizontal differentiation. Do you think about it this way? And it's why do you think it's a compelling framework? Obviously, there are models of vertical differentiation too. So you go back to an old timer. I was curious about the diary, what you love with this particular model of price dispersion.
So I'm not sure I'm getting this. If I think about some other framework, like from Lancaster, where you think about some kind of other differentiating characteristics, is that what you would think of as?
Yeah, exactly.
So I thought that it was analogous to this, and I didn't think it was different, and that I thought meant that this model had more application than it might seem. That's how I was thinking about it.
How do you compare it to Dixit-Stiglitz? The way I always thought about it.
So I'm thinking about Atkinson and Burstein, which I think is related to that. And then you can think about, they think about substitutions. They think about substitutions within a sector and across sectors. And that I think bears some relation to the Hotelling type model. I think you can make that parallel. Anyway, so capital N is the number of stores and capital H is the whole circumference. So this distance that I care about between two adjacent stores is 2H, is given by this simple formula here. And ultimately, as I said, half of that is what is going to end up being relevant, half of 2H, which is what I'm going to call H. So for the moment, let me think about store one. And let me suppose that it's going to service a market out some distance going towards store two. And I'll call that H sub 1, 2, meaning that the It's the distance going toward store 2 from store 1. And ultimately, that's going to equal H, but I'm not going to impose that condition on the problem. So I'll just call it some market distance H12, which is going to be covered to the right. And I'm going to think about the analysis applied in that range from store 1 to store 2, but it's going to be completely parallel going to the left towards store capital N. And I don't have to do that kind of separately. So here I'm going to think about the market between store 1 and store 2.
Let me ask you, maybe now I can ask you my same question again. So this is a model in which the differentiation sits on the firm side, and from the consumer side is perceived as a cost to accessing the store because there's a geographical distance among them. But you can think about a story for price dispersion coming from differentiation on the consumer side, like consumers differing in the marginal willingness to pay for the good. And so I was using the taxonomy between horizontal and vertical differentiation, and I was curious.
So maybe when we finish this, we can think about how that may or may not apply to that broader, maybe deeper context.
Thank you.
Okay, so initially I'm thinking of the number of stores in the market capital N as given, but ultimately that will be determined from a free entry condition. So I'll get back to that a bit later.
Now, you say that things are symmetric between 1 and 2 and 1 and N.
You know,
However, N may be at a different distance than 2.
they won't be in equilibrium, but at the moment they could be.
That may be the result of equilibrium, but when you're analyzing it before equilibrium, you have to take that into account, the possibility
Right.
that the differences are that the distances are different, but you're not doing that.
Well, at the moment, I'm assuming that the stores are evenly spaced around the circle.
Is that an assumption, or is that your claim for an equilibrium?
It's an assumption at the moment, and then I'm gonna claim later on that that's an equilibrium in the model. At the
But then to
moment,
make that claim, you've got to analyze the case where there's not.
Conjecture.
This
that
is
you
a
then
metric
verify
equilibrium.
as-
Okay, but the verification requires looking at the case where the distances are not the same.
agree.
Gonna show that nobody wants to move.
Well, but he's going to talk about an entry process, he says.
Okay, so let me think about this market between store 1 and store 2 for the moment. Okay, and then the effective price that consumers at distance Z pay for buying from store 1 is what's given by equation 2. It's the explicit price that store 1 charges for the good P1 plus the TZ. And of course, that's going to vary across distances Z going from 0 out to this thing H sub 1, 2, which is what I'm denoting for the market distance. Okay, this is just some statement that this is analogous to the Lancaster and Baumol type of models that were around going back to the 1960s. So I'm not doing anything with that at the moment.
Can store 3 participate in
Yeah,
store 1? Market?
yeah.
Eventually, yes, but it'll turn out not to be part of the equilibrium that's going to happen. The question will be, can store 1 price in such a way as to sort of go beyond store 2 in terms of the customers that it's attracting?
Yeah.
So I consider that later. So at the moment, initially I'm going to assume that this H12 is in the interior between 0 and 2H. So the distance out to store 2 is 2H at the moment. And I'm going to assume the market distance is interior at the moment. And then I'm going to see whether that in fact is the equilibrium. I'm going to allow it to be different from that and show that that produces a contradiction that suggests that it's the equilibrium. Okay, so for the moment, let me think about the market distance as interior between 0 and 2H. That is going to be a certain quantity that people are buying. So they're not just buying either 0 or 1 unit of the good, but rather there's some constant elasticity demand function dependent on the effective price, which is this P1 star of Z, so that the quantity bought by consumers at distance Z is going to be given by equation 3. So there's 2 parameters in there. One is the scale of demand by individuals, which is the capital A. So that's going to be some parameter you can move around. And the other, a more important thing is the elasticity of demand, eta, which is taken to be constant. So the standard learner type analysis of this problem is going to require that the elasticity be bigger than 1. And that's not going to be required in this model. In this hoteling model, that's not going to be required. So I think that's important because it doesn't seem like typically it would be the case that this elasticity of demand would be bigger than 1 in magnitude. Anyway, at the moment, I'm just assuming it's some positive eta.
That demand function assumes that you purchase something from all stores at all distances.
This is the demand within this market area for buying stuff
But
from.
what is the demand function over this for store 1 at people at location 2, location 3, etc.? What's the demand function for those people?
The goods provided are going to be viewed as perfect substitutes, except for the fact they're at different distances. So people who are beyond are going to buy 0 of store 1's goods. People who are beyond this market distance, which I call this H12 going to the right, they're going to buy nothing from store 1.
Unless store 1 undercuts just as you.
Yeah, so then I consider whether that might be desirable for store 1 to do that kind of price undercutting. They don't.
So Ken, what you're asking for is analysis with a set of HIJs.
Yeah.
More general analysis and then showing that a bunch of things can be eliminated.
Yeah.
HIJ likely being symmetric, but yeah.
Because symmetry is not a natural outcome of this kind of stuff.
Oh, the model, the equilibrium that I propose and focus on is completely symmetric. And I find that compelling myself, but at the moment, let me see if I can construct that.
Can you give us just a hint on this elasticity? Because as I'm remembering, the problem with the elasticity less than 1 is that you charge an infinite price. And
Right, exactly.
So how are you going to get around that?
It's because the market border is going to react in a way to make the effective elasticity bigger than 1.
Yeah.
Got it. Not just the consumer
So,
specific.
so that's not the
Yes,
demand curve.
exactly.
That's not the demand curve.
I feel like if there's people in a specific epsilon, right?
This is the quantity that would be demanded by some individual, given that they're buying from this store 1.
Conditional on buying from somebody.
Yes. And eta is actually going to be the elasticity of demand in the whole market. It's actually going to be that, but that's a different point. Let me put that off. Okay, so in hoteling assumed eta was equal to 0. A lot of people have versions of the model where that's true, where eta is equal to 0, which has important implications going forward with the results. Okay, so I'm going to think about, we have these purchases by people all along this circle at these distances. I'm going to think about the quantity by each individual as contributing essentially an infinitesimal amount to the total amount sold by each store, in particular store 1. And then I'm going to think about the total quantity that store 1 sells, which is over an interval Z from 0 to H12 going to the right from its location. It's going to correspond to that integral there, which is the integral of these infinitesimal amounts sold to each of the buyers who are designated by their location Z. Okay, so given the demand curve that I wrote down, this is all simple enough that you can integrate it out and you get equation 4. That's how the total quantity sold by store one going to the right up to the market border H12. That's what's given, that's what Q1 is, capital Q1. And it's going to depend on the price that's set, P1, which is the price at the store's location. And it's going to depend on, so TH12 is going to be the transport cost per unit at the border, at the market border H12. So the effective price at the border is going to be P1 plus TH12. And that appears also in this expression.
This is assuming that P1 is equal to P2.
No, I'm not assuming that, but the question is, what is H12? And P2 is going to matter for that.
Right.
But
So P2 shouldn't P2 be in there somewhere?
well, not once I know H12, but in order to figure out H1, okay, so at the moment, I'm going to assume 8 is bigger than 1, but that's just so the algebra isn't messed up. You really don't need that condition here. You only need it to be non-negative. But at the moment, I'm going to assume 8 is bigger than 1 so that I don't have problems thinking about this integral. But I don't need that condition, which I think is important. Okay, so then you can figure out what's the store is going to price. It's going to want to know, how does the total quantity it sells react to a change in the price? And that's going to be given by equation 3. And that's going to depend on what this H12 is. But as long as that's given, that's all that the store has to care about. So there's a critical expression as part of this equation 5, which is the effect of a change in the price on the market border, H12. That term is part of this expression. So purely for expository purposes, I don't know, people may not like this. I'm going to pretend for the moment that H12 is given. And when you change the price, it doesn't change. But that's really just because I want to see how the ultimate result relates to the Lerner formula. So the Lerner formula for the monopoly price is going to result when you take the market border as fixed. And that's going to be completely counterfactual, but I'm going to pretend that that holds for the moment, just so I have this result that I can compare with the full hoteling type result. So if I pretend that H12 is given, then this is a very simple monopoly pricing problem to figure out what the price is going to be. And that's going to be what you need to maximize the profit in equation 6, which includes a fixed cost. And then there's going to be some expression for a first order condition for choosing the price P1 from equation 7. And that's going to ultimately result in this equation 8. The equation 8 is going to be the first order condition for the price if the market border is fixed. That's this H12 thing. Now, it's probably not obvious from that expression because you have all these demands coming from people located at different points. If it's true that the main part of the price is the explicit price P1 rather than the transport costs, if the price is much bigger than the transport cost, in particular at the market border, which is TH12, then you can get a very nice linear approximation to this first order condition. And that's equation 9, which is the standard Lerner formula. So if the transport cost is not that big a deal relative to the explicit price, then you're going to get the standard Lerner formula, which is only well defined if 8 is bigger than 1, as has already been remarked. Okay, so I'm only putting that up here for background to compare with the actual solution. But it makes sense if the market border is fixed, then it's going to be the standard Lerner problem where you have a monopoly pricing thing and you're going to get the usual Lerner formula. Okay, now the key thing in this model is the behavior at the border. and how the border position changes when you change the price. So that's what I'm going to work out next. Okay, so the critical thing is that at the border between stores 1 and 2 in particular, the effective price has to be the same for both stores because people are going to be just indifferent between buying from one store or the other at the border. And that's what equation 11 says. So the term on the left is the effective price for buying from store 1, given that the distance from the store is H12. So TH12 is the transport cost per unit. And the expression on the right is the effective price for buying from store 2, which brings in P2. And it also brings in the distance from store 2. So if H12 is in the interior, then 2H minus H12 is the distance. And that's the gives the transport cost for buying from store 2. So these two things have to be equal at the border in order for it actually to be the border. Okay, so that in particular tells me if I'm doing a Bertrand kind of analysis here where store 1 is now going to pick a price, taking as given the price of store 2 and also the location of store 2. So those things are being held fixed from the perspective of store 1. And that tells me how the market border changes if store 1 changes its price. That's equation 12. So there are effects coming on both sides from that change. If you're going to move the border, you're going to get closer. If you move it to the left, you're going to get closer to store 1 and further away from store 2, which means that there are two effects coming in, which is going to bring in a 2 when you work out the answer. And the answer to that is equation 12. This tells me how the border changes if you raise the price. And of course, if you raise the price, the border is going to contract because you're only going to be able to sell to people who are closer to you when you're charging a higher price. And this tells you exactly how much compensation you need to get a higher price in terms of the location has to be closer to the store. So that was the term I needed in the first order condition before, which I just assumed that was 0, which doesn't really make any sense. So this is what it actually is in the hoteling context.
So Robert, the question, I would have thought the DH12, DP1, that would involve entry of new stores rather than just competition between an existing set of stores, and that somehow that would be relevant for the derivative. It just,
I mean, for the moment, I was holding fixed the number of stores and then thinking about how those stores interact. In particular, what is the border position between adjacent stores? And that's the thing I'm looking at here. Then ultimately, I want to think about the number of stores, capital N, and that's going to be determined by a free entry condition. But I haven't, at the moment, I'm holding that fixed.
That's going to be Nash as well, right? So you're not going to think about the derivative either. I think there's a Nash equilibrium with the price of the other store and the decision of the other store to be.
And the locations.
Okay, so now I can plug that result into what I did before in terms of store 1 choosing its price to maximize profits. And when you do that, you get a revised first order condition, which is equation 14. Which has this funny -1/2 thing on the right-hand side, which is involving this effect on the market border position. So if I again assume that the price dominates over the transport cost, which is about the P1 being much bigger than TH12, I can again approximate what this equation is saying in terms of a linearization, which gives me equation 15. And I'm going to look later quantitatively about the nature of this approximation as to how good it is and how that depends on the underlying parameters of the model.
They're competing both sides, right? One store is also competing to the in store, and the other side.
the change of price, the change in Bordo on both sides. But through the same equation, can I just look at one side of the market? And there's-
Yeah, that's exactly how I was thinking of it, yes. Yeah, it's gonna be the same trade-off. Everything's gonna be there twice. It's not gonna affect the relative amounts. You're gonna end up with the same answer, but
So it ends up being the same equation.
we could work that out in annoying detail, I suppose.
But that's where the twos come from,
Just going.
No, this two is different
not
from
the one
that.
from before.
This two here is about this competition with one adjacent store, but when you move the border, you're getting closer to this one and further away from that one. That's what that two is. That has nothing to do with store N on the other side.
You know, but I was thinking that it was good, move both borders at the same time, that's what I would be, another tool, but maybe not.
Well, you don't have to move both market borders at the same time, but
When you change the price, you do.
Yeah.
Aren't you
That's what
just,
this is about. It's about changing the price that you're offering to anyone coming from either side.
right, yes, you're right. That's
But unless I thought you were going on a rotary fashion, and so when you go and characterize and not the firm that I'm next to on the left side is the last firm you may be going over in constructing these best responses, so you've gotten that at the end. So to speak.
So maybe I should work the whole thing out with the two sides at once. It's gonna be the same thing, but maybe it's better to do it all.
aren't you just saying that the first order conditions are the same? If you were calculating gross
Yeah,
profits,
it's
you
gonna
have to
look the
double.
same.
But you're not, you're just trying to figure out what the first order condition is.
Yes, yeah, it's gonna look the same.
Yeah, so kind of going back to the way I usually think of this, the hoteling model where everybody just has, elasticity of a zero, everybody's buying, I don't know, 1 unit or something.
Yeah.
Then we get the price is proportional to the transport cost. Right,
The price is,
proportional to the transport cost. I mean, the simplest is if we have two people, there's one here and one there, two supermarkets, one's here and one's there. There's transport costs and both supermarkets charge the same price and they're each going to get half of the market. Basically, the margin that both supermarkets are going to get is proportional to the transport cost. Right. And here what you've got in addition is that people don't have an elasticity of, it's not everybody's buying the same amount regardless of the price.
but they
And so-
could be. I mean, Ada could be zero.
Right, in which case everything solves out to just the price is proportional to the transport cost, right?
You mean P minus C is proportional to the transport cost?
Yeah, you pay C plus T.
Yeah, okay, so equation 15 is what the linear approximation looks like in this model. So that the excess from marginal cost is just going to be involving this transport thing,
I'm trying to
along
understand.
with the distance, the H12, the market distance.
Well, unlike these other guys, I have no problem with the way you've developed your equilibrium. But
I don't know whether that's comforting or not.
I'm an old guy, I have it all wrong. I would see the price being, if we didn't have the constant elasticity demand overlay, we just have the price everybody charge.
I mean, that's
charge-
important for some of the results.
No, I got that, but you can do one step at a time. The
Okay,
price would be C plus T, basically,
yeah.
right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
now, so I actually had a question, so I'm trying to understand here. So if I start there with the C plus T, okay, can you just tell me basically what happens to the margins when we put in the constant elasticity piece?
So you like equation 15, but you're saying your intuition for that depends on 8 equals 0? Is that what you're saying?
8 equals 0 is the case that I've dealt with two kinds of cases in my life. One is like essentially the 8 equals 0 case, right?
Right.
And the other is where the way we have a differentiation is we have a whole bunch of firms and you know, the way you decide how much you like each product is it's drawn from some kind of a demand curve, which could be linear or constant elasticity.
Okay.
And then you just choose among the n firms, which one gives you the best, you know, the product that you like. And so I kind of have a sense of how to solve those two things. And you've got something a little different, and I'm trying to understand.
Okay.
I'm trying to understand how to think about it.
I think I should go a little further because I need to think about this market border thing being determined. This H12 thing, which I don't know how you would treating that.
I'm fine with.
So why is eta missing from equation 15?
Well, it's an approximation, which I'm going to try to quantify the nature of that approximation.
Is it a small eta approximation or a small t approximation?
Well, both things come in. If eta is really big, this approximation is no good. If eta is small, it doesn't have to be less than 1, but in some range, the approximation is going to be pretty good. I can quantify that in a little while.
I'd have thought if t equals 0, the
but
price
it
would
also
be
involves
C.
how big TH is. That's going to also matter.
If you quantify it relative to the true solution, well, you just use the true solution.
Because I get a lot of results out of this that I don't know how to get out of that true solution unless I do the whole thing numerically.
And what would be wrong with that? You wouldn't have all these questions in that case.
I think in the end, you want to see what I get out of this, and then you can tell me why it's crap. But I think it's premature at the moment. Go a little further here. The second order condition in this model, which has a hoteling border effect in it, only requires that eta be greater than or equal to 0. It doesn't require eta to be bigger than 1. And I can explain that more in a little while, exactly why that's true, but I think that's important. But let me think first about the border position now. I want to think about how that's determined, right? I mean, you know in your heart that it should be halfway along from 0 to 2h. So that's what I'm trying to derive here. Okay, so we have equation 15. That's for pricing of store 1. There's an analogous condition if you bring in pricing by store 2, which involves another distance. 2h minus h12 is the distance going the other way. So you have equations 15 and 16, and you also have equation 11, which is that at the border, people are indifferent from which store that they're buying from. If you put those three equations together, you get the result h12 equals h, which is sort of intuitive, which is just completely symmetric. And corresponding to that, you get that the prices for the two stores, here I'm looking at P1 and P2, are the same. And they're given now by C plus 2TH, because there's just the one H now, there's not the H12. So all the stores are going to price in the same way, and they're going to involve this excess over marginal cost depending on this transport cost thing. So little h is given now as long as the number of stores in the whole market is given, which I have to go back to.
The intuition of this. So h is the distance between stores, right? And the borders.
2h. So h is the market distance.
Okay, so they are, they're selling standard, you know, Bertrand gives you perfect competition. They're selling at the marginal cost, including the transport cost of the guys at the edge, and then making money from the guys who.
Well, 2TH is the transport cost if you wanted to move goods completely from store 1 to store 2. Not to the market border, but all the way to store 2, you'd have to pay 2TH. That's what comes into play when you think about price undercutting, because then you'd have to move all the way to the next store. And the transport cost associated with that is 2TH.
John, the way you described it would be right if there's like an auction for each customer, and so you made money off of the customers who were near you, and you made nothing off of border
Right.
customer. But since you don't
A
know
common
who's
price.
exactly where, everybody's paying the same price. And you're making the same money from all the customers, but the ones who are on the border get, less consumer surplus because they have their transport costs.
But they're not getting C plus their own transport costs. They're paying even more than that. They're paying C plus the
Yeah, that's
transport cost to take it all the way to the next store.
Why is that? You don't have to go H, you don't have to go 2H.
But the way that the next store can't find it profitable to get the guy that's closest to you. But the other store was charging C, that customer would still be indifferent between paying C plus 2H at your store or C at the other store. So I think there might be the intuition about thinking about the customer that's closest to you versus having that customer go to the other place and shop.
Yeah, I need to have more into why it's 2TH rather than TH.
That's the question, yeah.
Because if you're sitting in between, the indifferent customer sitting between the two stores, if somebody undercuts by epsilon, he just goes the other way. And yet you've got the whole H you can undercut him by, right?
I didn't follow that. In order to undercut the next door, you're gonna have to cut by 2TH. And that's not gonna be profitable. Which is why you're not gonna
No,
do
no,
it.
that's the result. But the part that's hard to understand is take the guy who's indifferent. Normally you just undercut him by epsilon, right? And then you would get a whole H, not just, you wouldn't get 0. Normally undercut by epsilon, you get 0. Here you're getting the whole H. So that seems odd.
I think it's back to the question
no,
of whether
no,
you're
because-
competing on both
Wow.
sides or just one
Say
side.
the cost. Say the cost. The whole.
Yeah.
Is $6.
Because it's your market is 2H, it's from from the N to 1 and 1 to 2. So you got 2H.
At H on each side, yeah.
Yeah.
Your price by 2 pennies. You actually only get.
Can I raise another issue here? You're assuming prices are linked.
At 51.
It's not clear that's
At
optimal.
50, well, at 51.
The effective price is linear in the distance.
No, but there's potential here to discriminate across customers by offering them price quantity schedule because they will be, if I
I
understand
mean, then
correctly.
you can figure out implicitly where they're coming from.
Yes, at least you can move in that direction.
I guess so.
Okay, but
You can assume away.
you can assume that away. I just,
Yeah,
that's
I
an
mean-
explicit, that's an unstated assumption in everything to this point.
It's a stated assumption.
Yeah, I'm assuming that the store can just charge one price at its location.
And he said that ahead of time. He said it right away.
No, what he said is he can't tell directly who's coming from where, but you don't need to do that to engage in price quantity discrimination. You can just offer a.
This whole literature
quantity
is
schedule.
price competition,
I understand. Well,
That's-
but you
that's the
can, you
whole
can
literature
compete
he's
on
working
price
on.
quantity schedules too.
but
That's off the
that's a
table
whole
here.
different set of models.
That's an interesting addition,
Continue, Robert.
Okay, and there was this question about undercutting. So in order to undercut, you'd have to cut your price. If you think about store 1 and, for example, trying to get customers all the way who are at the location of store 2. In order to do that, you'd have to reduce the price by this 2TH. And that means you have to be pricing at the below marginal cost. At or below marginal cost, and that's not going to be profitable. So that's the argument for why you're not going to be doing that. Okay, so I looked at the approximations that I made in a pricing formula. You can express the results fully in terms of 2 parameters that matter in this model. One is the elasticity of demand, eta, And the other one is this object that looks like 2th is going to be this the markup. And that relative to the marginal costs is going to be the second parameter that is going to describe the solution. So 2th over C and eta, you can express the results completely in terms of those two parameters. And then what I show by working out the results exactly for what the first order condition says without the linear approximation, that if the elasticity of demand isn't bigger than about 3 or so, and this other object isn't bigger than about 0.2, that the approximate solution is within 3% of the full solution. In some sense, that the approximate solution is pretty accurate. That's what's worked out numerically there.
You can solve the model, assert that you got a solution, and describe that doing side calculations that embody the approximations. Right?
So it gets a question how you can characterize the solution if you want to do the full nonlinear solution.
It's just suggesting you need to develop a set of assumptions like linearity. Right. But you need to at least to get this paper published.
No, Bob, you're way too way too optimistic. Way too complimentary of the journal system.
Well, so what I work out in these table that has these exact results, first I compare the full solution with this approximate hoteling type formula. And then you can also compare the solution with the Lerner formula, which is only defined if eta is bigger than 1. And what's true there is that unless the elasticity is really large, or this transport cost is really large relative to the cost of production, the approximation in the hoteling formula is very accurate, and the Lerner formula is terrible, is what that shows in those tables. That's what's claimed to be true. So one reason I found this of interest is there's a lot of empirical literature looking at markups and how they're determined. And many of these papers sort of write down the Lerner formula based on the elasticity of demand, and then make no use of that formula whatsoever in the analysis. This seems to be a common research strategy here. So that fits well with this analysis, because this analysis says the Lerner formula is going to be useless. And then it's a good thing that it's not used in this empirical analysis. That's the way I was looking at it.
I'm not sure that's a good thing. Maybe if they had used it and got rejected, they might have written this paper a bit earlier.
I don't know about that. Another way to look at this result, which is fairly straightforward, if you look at this pricing formula equation 17, which is this hoteling kind of markup result, is that the effect of the marginal cost on the price is 1-to-1, which Sangani refers to in his paper as 100% pass through in levels. Whereas if you think about the Lerner formula, which is equation 9, that says that the price is proportional to marginal cost, which is 100% pass through in logs, or in proportionate sense. And Sangani argues in his empirical analysis that that doesn't fit very well for the cases that he looks at. So that's a contrast in terms of these predictions.
In the empirics of this literature, I don't know what kinds of goods are people looking at. So if I think of milk would seem to be a good that's probably not in your good approximation set, because it spoils quickly. The cost of going to the store and getting the milk seems high relative to the milk itself. So you potentially got a way to sort goods into categories that do or don't fit into your approximation range. And then you have, if I understand correctly, you have different implications about how cost gets passed through to price as a testable implication. And I don't know
Right.
whether the literature breaks down that way in terms of what we currently know about the pass through from cost to prices.
Well, he looks at cases where it's straightforward what the sort of marginal cost is. Like in terms of retail gasoline involving wholesale gasoline or oil prices. Or there's a lot of literature on excise taxes as a
Okay,
cost.
so for people who live in rural areas, time to get to the gas station is probably high. It's a source of cost relative to the cost of the gas itself. Whereas in urban areas, gas stations.
Yeah, I mean, the transport would have to be pretty high for that anyway.
Well, I'm just trying to take this to the data in a
Well,
way.
the big thing is that this is a model of that undifferentiated products sold by different stores. So, something like gasoline where it's really the same product and it's sold by a bunch of different stores, and the margins are basically going to be determined by location. And the alternative model would be like something like women's dresses, where there are a whole bunch of different stores, and it's entirely possible that as you have more stores, more different dresses, differentiated, that you're actually going to end up with higher prices.
I took your transport costs
It's just,
as
it's
comparable.
a different thing.
Yeah, but
No,
maybe it's not going to be linear.
Products versus the same product.
The transport costs are just comparable.
It's supposed to, yeah, it's intended that way.
You were
Yes.
very nice to spare us the motivation, but I think now I'm seeing it, which is in standard models. There's this Dixit-Stiglitz thing with the elasticity substitution, and to get a huge markup, you go, I can't believe that Peet's Coffee and Starbucks coffee has that huge elasticity substitution. Now I understand why you got 8 out of the formula. It's just saying it is completely irrelevant. It has nothing to do with the elasticity substitution of the two goods. It's entirely this question of how well do I match with the particular location that sells an identical good.
So let me talk about that in the context of this full elasticity of demand, because there's a sense in which this model can recover the Lerner formula, but you have to reinterpret what you mean by the elasticity of demand to include in the hoteling model the market border effect that I talked about before. So when the approximation that I described is satisfactory, the quantity sold by a store, like store one on, let's say, one side of the market, is given by equation 18, which involves this market border size, little h, and otherwise it involves the price to the minus eta, which is the elasticity, the usual elasticity of demand.
What's the approximation here?
The approximation is when that pricing formula that I worked out
is
before is
valid.
satisfactory, which relates to the underlying parameters in the way I described before. But the Lerner formula will work if you think about the full elasticity of demand, which includes the market border effect. So that elasticity is given by equation 19. So the this is the elasticity of demand for an individual store holding fixed what all the other stores are given, including their prices. So that involves the usual minus eta term, which is the standard elasticity. But it also involves this effect where little h is going to decrease when you raise the price. And that term is the last term on the right-hand side here. And you can see that the magnitude of that last term has to be bigger than 1. And it's the fact that the overall, the full elasticity of demand is bigger than 1 in magnitude that gets around the problem of having a store charge an infinite price. And that's why a store won't be motivated to charge an infinite price. And moreover, if it's true that the marginal cost is much more important than the transport cost, which looks like 2th, then that magnitude is going to be quite large. So that's going to be like the substitution between products that are pretty close substitutes, essentially.
So is this the intuition? In the standard model, labor bars is 1 unit. When you move the price, you're giving up 1 unit for everybody, right? Whereas now, the people close to you, you're giving up much more than a unit because they're buying more.
Well, you've got the quantity thing, the minus eta, but at the border, you lose all the business by having an infinitesimal increase in the price. It's an infinitesimal quantity sold at the border, but you're losing all of it.
But that's true in the hoteling
That's what
model.
the term on the right is.
But that's true in the hoteling model too. If you,
Yeah, in the hoteling model.
so you're getting that extra bit here because when you lose the customers close to you, you're not losing just a single unit, you're using, because they're buying more. Isn't that what's driving?
That's the eta part. So that's why, I mean, that's going to be a small part of the relevant overall elasticity. So in that sense, the eta is not going to be critical for the results in terms of the pricing formula. And as an approximation, the eta is not going to matter for the markup. Now, that's not true if eta becomes very large, but it's true over some range.
You asserted that what small meant. You agree?
Well, I worked out some numerical results to find out how close the approximate solution was to the full one in some range.
Yeah, what's the range?
So I was thinking if the elasticity of demand isn't bigger than, for example, 3, and if this transport cost is not more than like 20% of the cost of production, something like that, that kind of interval.
That was part of that. Okay, so you need to convince the audience that that's an interesting.
Okay,
20.
fair enough.
Okay. Well, is it a Taylor approximation with respect to transport cost that holds exactly for a range of units? Or is it a Taylor approximation with respect to eta and transport cost evaluation?
The solution holds exactly if eta is equal to 0.
Okay, so it's
And then if eta is a little bit bigger than 0, it's very close.
a Taylor approximation with respect to eta and t, both of them at 0.
Well, I'm looking at P plus T H basically. So it's about TH relative to P in terms of the approximation.
If you had solved this numerically with a well-defined set of algebraically expressed equations, then you could directly do what John just suggested, a Taylor series approximation in the parameters that you care about. And there wouldn't be all these discussions about this or that. And this is just basic standard uncertainty quantification methods that are hated by economists, by the way. But no, if you did a numerical solution of this with fully expressed equations, then all of the formulas that you really care about are easily attainable without this business of first order approximations here, first order approximations there, and then we're confused about what the results are.
Okay.
No, if you do it numerically and then examine basically the gradient of the system of equations at the solutions, you will get out expressions like that.
Yeah.
And it won't depend on this small assumption or that small assumption. You will see exactly. It will depend on the base at which you do the Taylor series approximation, but you'll see, you'll be able to answer these questions like from Bob and John and others, and as opposed to all of this hand waving. I mean, I like to remind you that this is not how we got men in the moon. It was by numerically solving equations that we got men in the moon. In 1960, yeah, we got, and
go a little bit further because I wanted to describe the free entry solution. Let me just note that if you look at the overall market, the total quantity sold by all the stores in the market, that's given by this expression A times capital H, P to the minus eta. So capital H is the circumference of the whole thing, which is given. So the elasticity associated with that is in fact just eta. So it's not just a sort of micro, it is the aggregate elasticity that is here. You can show that you want to do equal spacing of the stores. So you can contemplate one store moving away from its location, say away from store N and towards store 2. And then you can show that the store is going to lose on net by doing that. But that result depends on the downward sloping demand curve and on the fact that the price per unit includes the distance. Then you can show that what you're losing is more than what you're gaining by moving away from one store and toward the other one. And
No,
Vickery in 1964 in his book had basically this result.
if you have uniformly spread out the stores, then yes, then I agree with your argument about this being an
I'm trying to
equilibrium.
deviate from the uniformity and see whether how that affects.
Yeah, but that's
the
just a
stores.
marginal deviation. You're saying you don't want to do a marginal deviation.
Oh, no, it's going to be any deviation from that is going to be suboptimal for an individual store, given what all the other ones are doing. It's not just a small deviation.
I very agree. So that for my
Well,
own
But,
intuition.
but my point is that there are other distributions of the stores which also satisfy your tests.
Have to show that.
No, you have to show that those aren't possible. What you've shown is that the uniform distribution can be an equilibrium. You have not shown that a
Shown
non-uniform,
that an individual store won't want to deviate, given what is.
given a uniform
All the other
distribution.
stores
Yes,
are like
but
that.
you have not shown that if you have some hypothetical non-uniform distribution, that somebody's going to want to deviate. You haven't shown that. And also the thing is, you look at papers like Prescott and Vischer on the entry process in markets, and I think Uli Dorzelski has a paper on entry processes in differentiated markets. You don't get this kind of result coming out. It's particularly if you're talking about an entry process, it's like who moves first is going to affect things. And also then there's a Schmalensee analysis in the cereals case in the late 70s, where he talks about the importance of what if somebody builds 2 stores or 3 stores and how they're grouped. So the assumption that there's only one store per economic actor is very limiting and unreasonable in this case. So, and the entry process is going to often give you something very much more complicated than this.
Well, let me describe what the free entry condition is that I have.
Which is,
Well, yeah, what's entry if it's not a sequential process?
No, I understand.
thought-
I have.
It's,
I
yeah,
say-
it's a dynamic Nash.
I thought that Prescott and Vischer, got symmetry. Because they're taking account of, you're entering first and then how store 2 is going to act. And,
Well,
given that you've
if you do a
entered
full
and,
dynamic version, which I think Dorzelski did, you don't get symmetry.
But can I ask a question?
I wanted to describe the entry result within the model that I had. So with the hoteling markup solution for price that I had, the total quantity sold by each store is going to be given by 18, which involves sales on both sides. And the profit for that store is going to be given by equation 19. And it depends on the market border distance, little h. So I'm just going to be looking for a free entry solution in terms of what does the number of stores and correspondingly this market border distance little h have to be in order to generate 0 profits for each store. That's what I'm working out here. And neglecting the fact that there would be an integer constraint on the number of stores, which is going to be more satisfactory if their number is larger. If you neglect that, you get the square root formula that's given by equation 20. So that's going to be the value of the distance between stores, which is 2h, which is going to correspond to a certain number of stores, capital N. And that's going to be what generates zero profit for each of the stores.
But the zero profit assumption is not necessarily the picking out an equilibrium. You could have, you take your N firms that have zero profits, but then now suppose you have N minus one firms distributed uniformly. My guess is that you'll find that nobody wants to enter. Because then to enter, they'd have to stick themselves in between two firms and
The
lose.
Nash equilibrium.
Yeah,
You're
so
not
the,
thinking about that dynamic.
what's the dynamics that lead to zero profits?
This only works if there's a rearrangement when the new store comes in so that they're evenly
Well,
distributed.
but that's a very different game that there's a rearrangement.
Well,
So what's the assumptions here about the dynamics of entry? Rearrangements or not, multiple stores or single
the
stores?
assumption is that the dynamics doesn't involve any costs, that the shifting of the location of the stores doesn't involve any costs. Then I think this is going to be the right
Yes,
answer.
but that needs to be, by the way, the other thing is if there are fixed costs of entry, you're still going to have a problem with multiple numbers of firms. But you have zero cost of entry, which is unusual assumption in this literature. That which you're also assuming.
Well, each store is paying a fixed cost to be in business. That's part of the solution. That's the little F.
Okay, then I don't, then
From
and the thing is that my point about N minus one firms being in equilibrium also hold, if there's a fixed cost.
Why don't you wrap up?
Okay, so what matters for the market distance is how big the fixed cost is relative to the scale of quantity demanded by each customer in the market, which is this A C to the minus eta thing. So bigger fixed cost relative to that is going to give you a bigger spacing. And the transport cost, the little t, is also going to enter into that. Given that free entry solution, you get the price solution corresponding to equation 22, so that the excess of price over marginal cost is going to involve the term on the right, which is going to have to do with this entry margin, which is determining this market distance h. So just one comment on these. There's this empirical study by Chevalier et al., which particularly looks at how markups relate to whether there's a peak demand or not. And they observed, I think their main finding is that in periods of peak demand, like holidays or Lent, they find that markups are lower than usual, which is sort of counterintuitive, I suppose. So they argue in their paper that this can't be explained based on what the elasticity of demand is in different periods, like holidays versus non-holidays. So you can get this result in the model that I worked out. If you have something that looks like entry during peak demand means in the model that I had that the scale of demand, which is the capital A, is unusually high, which is going to motivate more entry in the way I looked at it. And I think you might want to think about entry in this context as having to do with store hours rather than numbers of stores in terms of what would vary seasonally, for example. So I think then that matches up with the empirical findings that are in this Chevalier paper. So I also compare the free entry with the socially optimal entry, which relates to some other literature here, including the book by Tirole. So the finding as Tirole worked it out, which basically has an elasticity of demand of 0, which is eta equal to 0. He has that there's too much entry in terms of the free entry solution. So there are basically two margins of distortion that occur in this model. One is that people don't buy the right quantity of goods because there's essentially monopoly pricing. And that depends on this elasticity of demand, eta, as to how important this is. And when eta is equal to 0, that's going to end up not mattering, which is true in Tirol's model. The other distortion comes from what's usually called a business stealing effect, which gives people too much incentive to enter because they're partly transferring profits from the incumbents. So that's the only force that operates in the model that Tirol has. And that's why he gets that there's excessive entry in the equilibrium. So the model that I worked out, when I have the approximation that I've already described being true, I get this distortion from the quantity being not the socially optimal quantity associated with this elasticity of demand. But in the range that I assumed applied, that works when the elasticity is not too big. And that condition ensures that the business stealing effect still dominates over the other inefficient quantity effect. So you still get excessive entry in this model. But that needn't be true if you look in ranges where the approximation I made is not satisfactory. And then you can get the opposite kind of result in this model. Okay, so that's the main thing I want to talk about. I want to think about this as a framework, particularly for thinking about markups, but it also has some implications with respect to these entry decisions.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I was trying before. So what you showed us is that if you restrict attention to symmetric equilibrium and you derive the equilibrium price equation under this bivariate for sort of Taylor expansion on eta and t, because eta is small and t is small, and then you wonder at the solution, what happens if you start increasing eta, t still dominates. So the effect in determining when
What do you
in
mean
zero,
T still dominates?
that if you look at the pricing equation for the segment, eta doesn't drop. Right?
Well, that
So-
was an approximation.
But if you, I thought your statement on the 3%, if you start increasing eta a little bit, but you are close to 0, but you start making it positive, the TH term still. What's the intuition? Is that in that segment, since consumer the products are undifferentiated, consumers are undifferentiated except for distance somehow, is the size of the H size of the market is of the model?
It's because there's this margin with very close substitution, which in this
Exactly.
model applies at the market border. And it gives you
Is
a
it
very
separate substitution?
large
Got it.
effect.
That's why it dominates. Okay.
So, I mean, in Atkinson and Burstein, they look within sectors and across sectors, and they
Yeah.
argue that the within sector elasticity tends to be much bigger.
Yeah.
So it's somewhat analogous
Very
to that.
similar. Although they have it differentiated with setup, no, two sides. So, okay, sorry.
Okay.
You have any big conclusions from this?
I'm trying to think about this framework as a useful way to view markups. And I think ultimately, in terms of thinking about markups, you want to know how markups relate to fundamentals. And I think the papers, at least that I'm familiar with, many of them follow Bob Hall's suggestion about how do you measure markups empirically. But I don't think those papers really look at how markups relate to fundamentals. So fundamentals in this model is stuff like elasticity of demand and things affecting transport costs or more generally the substitutions between products. So I would have wanted to apply it to think about how markups relate to those things and whether there's empirical mileage in looking at it that way.